Hi everyone! Some time ago I heard that creators of Procreate had released an animation app, but back then the reviews for it weren't exactly great. Now I'm curious to see whether anything has changed since then. I bought the app a week ago, spent some time drawing in it, and I think I can share my thoughts with you. First of all, everything I'm going to say here is purely my personal opinion. Some of the pros and cons I mention might not matter to you at all. The app itself visually looks a lot like Procreate, and I think people who enjoy clean, minimalist interfaces will probably feel at home. One clear plus is the generous workspace. You can hide the main timeline, so you are left with just the canvas and a small mini timeline. Compared to the way I sometimes have to work in Clip Studio, it feels like night and day. I was also pleasantly surprised that you can add filters, text, faders and more right inside the app. That is super convenient because it saves you from having to export your animation and open another program just to add those effects. The animation you see me working on here is probably familiar already. This is the animation with Marceline and Bubblegum that is already on my channel in the shorts section. Now for the big drawback I noticed right away, there's no lasso selection tool. I read that people were complaining about this back when the app first came out, and it still hasn't been added. You can probably see in the video that I have to manually resize or erase certain parts. With the lasso, I could have done it in seconds. Another minus is the lack of brush settings. Dreams includes only the standard Procreate brushes and a global stabilizer. For example, if you increase stabilization, it affects every brush, so you will need to turn it off again whenever you don't want it. On the plus side, Dreams does let you import brushes from Procreate. To do that, you have to use iPad split view and drag your brush from Procreate into Dreams. Personally, I found that far from intuitive. This leads into another issue. The overall workflow can be quite unintuitive. For example, when you create a new project, you can only pick from the built-in templates. You can change the canvas size right in that dialog. You can, however, adjust things like size or frame rate later in the project settings. Another situation. Suppose you want to move several frames at once on the timeline. To do this, you have to enter Timeline Edit mode, select Content, highlight everything and group it. But once you are in Timeline Edit mode, you can break that group back into individual frames. You have to switch back to Draw mode to ungroup them. While I was making my animation, I didn't figure this out and ended up shifting all the frames manually. Honestly, it would never have occurred to me that this is the intended way to do it. I'm not sure whether this next one counts as a real drawback, but I ran into it myself. I had a sketch layer and I wanted to add another layer for line art. I lowered the opacity of the sketch, created the line layer, and for some reason the new layer was also semi-transparent. If I created both layers first and then lowered the sketch opacity, the issue didn't appear. From what I have read, this isn't the only bug people have mentioned, but it is the only one I personally encountered. When I first started using Dreams, my impression was much more negative. Over time it softened. I would not call the app bad, more like unfinished. Perhaps the developers were trying to preserve a minimalist feel, but that also makes some features harder to discover and you might not even realize certain functions exist. And if the team fixes the rough edges, it could become a truly excellent animation app.